Okay guys, got all the motor mounts done, so now moving on to the transmission. This is my brand new Jegs torque converter. It's a 10-inch converter. It's, I believe they call it an XHD. I'll show you the part number right there. I think it's 60431. Extra heavy duty torque converter. It's a 3500 to 3900 stall, I believe. And it's got what's called anti-ballooning plates, and I'm planning on running some nitrous on the 5.3 there. And when you do that, what happens is you have this instant torque that goes to the transmission. Well, that instant torque makes the flywheel spin really fast, really quickly, which can cause the torque converter to actually expand. So that's called ballooning, and when it expands, it pushes this nub forward. Well, there's something in here where the crankshaft goes that's called a thrust washer, or thrust bearing actually. If you don't have an anti-ballooning plate, you run the risk of pushing the crankshaft forward when the torque converter balloons. And if it pushes the crankshaft forward, it'll ruin that thrust washer, which is what prevents the crank from going back and forth horizontally. If you do that, your motor's done. So I don't want to do that, so I took the extra precaution and bought the XHD converter. It's actually pretty reasonably priced for what it is. And it's got some decent reviews online. I'm not going to be putting out 1,000 horsepower with this engine when it's all said and done with the 125 shot. I hope it puts up 425 to 450 to the ground, which is going to be plenty for this converter. But from what people say, if you're planning on running 1,000 horsepower, which is not that commonly done and not that easy to do either, they're saying don't use this. But since we do have it here, I've got to do a couple things. So there is this thing that I bought here. If you don't know what it is, since I'm putting an old school regular turbo 400 onto the 5.3, you have to adapt an old style converter to fit on the LS motor. In order to do that, what the problem is there's what we call a snout on the converter, and that's what this ring is right here. This ring is supposed to fit in the back of this crankshaft. Well, it doesn't, because it's too short on these older style torque converters. So they make this, which is a spacer that you tap into the back of the crankshaft. So I'll tap that here in a minute, and what it does is make some room so that that nub can fit on the converter snout like that. So that way you have everything lined up and level like it's supposed to. So this is an important tool. Secondly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some converter bolts in the flywheel, because I believe one of them has to be kind of hogged out. So I've got to figure that out real quick before I do much. Another thing to note is this is only needed if you have what they call a sunken in flywheel, which this flywheel on the back of this motor is sunken in, and if I turn it, you might be able to see why it's called sunken in, because the bolts for the flywheel are actually indented where it bolts up to where the actual teeth of the flywheel are. So if you have that sunken in one, which is what this is, you have to run one of these adapters. So the instructions say make sure you clean out where the adapter is going to go. So I have a rubber dead blow here. So I'm going to put this in place and then tap it in. Nice. Here we go. That was pretty easy actually. So now I'm just going to put this on the back of the crankshaft. There we go. Let's see if I can't get everything lined up. Okay, so upon further investigation, someone's already oblonged the holes on this flywheel. the original hole in the flywheel is like this part on the outside, and then they hog out from the outside in. And someone's actually already done that, so that's actually a little bit of work that I'm not going to have to do. Does raise some questions as to why, since this had a 4L60 transmission on it previously. So now that I have verified all that works, I'm going to put some fluid, about a quart of fluid or so, as much as I can, into this torque converter, and then I'll get started on throwing it in the transmission. Alrighty, it's time to install the torque converter. And I used to R&R transmissions for a living at a performance shop for a while, so I've kind of figured this out, and so we'll throw it up there and I'll explain what I'm going to do. So I'm going to throw it up there and get it on the input shaft, and that's good, but it's not all the way in, and to get it all the way in you've got to spin it. You're going to hear it clunk once it actually engages in the trans. You're going to want to put some pressure on it. So there's like these three things that have to line up on it. And you can always put your hand back there and feel, if you feel the shaft, it's definitely not in. Man, this sucker is being difficult. Oh, did you hear that? And it went a lot further in. I think I still have a little bit more to go. There it goes. Alright. And maybe a little bit more. You're going to notice that probably the face of the transmission, or the bell housing, is well good inch or so within the edge of the bell housing. I'm still gonna, you can run your finger back in between here and you can feel the front of the, like the cast iron of the transmission case is butted up to the back of this, of the torque converter, of the kind of the bowl of it. So yeah, so I can tell that it actually physically cannot go back any further. And then we, until there's a little bit of resistance by spinning it, and she's in. So it's really important that that goes back in. It will either clunk twice or 3 times as it lines up on the pump teeth, and then it'll slide in. So, and like I said, if I run my finger here, there's like a good inch or so back from the plate of this. So now we're going to mate it to the motor, and then tomorrow I'm going to throw everything back in the truck. So this is the last step before it goes back in. Awesome. So I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible. I've got this transmission on one of my car dollies, and boy does it make it a lot easier to move around. I can't see. Let me see what we got here. We need to get it. Ooh, really close there. Let's come up some now. Okay. When you're putting a transmission on from under a car, above car, it doesn't matter. What you have to do is you line up these dowel pins with the hole on the trans. So you don't want to force anything. You want to try to get these lined up and in as much as possible. And you want to make sure the converter spins the whole time as well. So you'll see the dowel pin here, and then the hole put there. And it kind of already lines up on that side right there, which is good. Now I just got to work on this side. It looks like it's going to have to come up some, which is okay. A little bit. Oh, there we go. I haven't ran any bolts down there yet, and it's already sitting on the dowel pins. So now I know I'm not going to force anything when I put the bolts in. Okay, so what's important to note is I did not force anything when mating that trans to the motor. And I'm going to put my hand on the converter here, and you can see I can spin it. That's extremely, extremely important. If you can't spin it, that means it's bound up. Bound up is very bad. But it is spinning very freely and good to go. I can tell it goes in and out of that what do you call it, the spacer. It's in the back of the crank. And all I need to do now is put some torque converter bolts in it. But I think I'm gonna call it a day for today. Well, good morning. It is time to get this motor and trans into the truck and be done with the final install. So pretty cool that we're gonna be done with that piece, and I can move on to headers and transmission lines and put the front end of the truck back on, and then start working on just the tedious stuff to get it running. So the hard part will be done at the end of this episode here. So that's really cool, making good progress. Wish it was a little quicker, but I had to save up for some money to buy some of the parts that we needed to do this. But they're in now. Let me show you what else I've done. I have these dash 6 adapters that I've put on the Turbo 400, and then I've got this braided Jegs braided transmission dipstick tube. So, and it said to put some like sealant on the bottom, so I'm letting that kind of sit up, and now I'm about to get ready to put everything back in place. Yeah, everything else is done. The motor mounts are on. You guys already saw that. The transmission mount is still on the transmission, so that's good. So now it's just going to be picking it up and putting it back in, and getting the transmission and stuff hooked up, which you guys seen that in, I think, part 2 of the Dakota LS swap, so I won't go over that again. I don't want to go over things too many times. Got all my bell housing bolts in, and in a minute here I'm going to go ahead and put the torque converter bolts in. One thing I did notice this morning is you can see where somebody somebody altered this flex plate. It's kind of chewed up there, but I can still use it. I'm going to have to use a flat washer and a lock washer as well, and I'm actually going to use some Loctite as well, because I always use Loctite on torque converter bolts. The question that I'm thinking about now is, should I hook up the starter while it's out or while it's in? I think there's tons of room, so I'm leaning towards putting the starter up and in place while it's in the truck. So let me throw those torque converter bolts in, and then we'll put the motor in the truck. Okay, all in, all bolted up. You can see the motor mounts look excellent. Tons of room to get to. I think it took me a total of 10 minutes to get the motor in by myself. So I'd say overall that's a pretty good design. I gotta thank one of my best friends, Tommy Kogan, for really helping me out with this, and a couple other friends. Chris Provo gave me that oil pan that's correct. A friend named Michael Kaiser gave me the oil pickup tube that was correct. These guys had some extra parts laying around, which was a big blessing. So a big thank you goes out to those guys, and also my buddy Greg, who's going to be in town here soon, the guy that has the Typhoon and the other Dakota. He's going to be coming in here and helping me work on some of this stuff. Plus we have a project on the Sonoma GT coming up here that I'm really excited about to share with y'all. So I'm going to throw the headers on because I need to start mocking up some other pieces. I want to show you guys that when they're on real quick, and then that'll be it. Okay, I threw the headers on, and I've gone over these headers before and they fit really well, but I just noticed on my driver's side, if you look way in there, my motor mount is touching a little bit of the header. So that is just extra metal, so that's easy to fix. I'm going to pull out my grinder here in a second and clearance that. So I'll knock that out. But man, she's in place. I'm about to clean up my transmission cross member because it needs to be cleaned and painted. So I'm not going to do that, put all that stuff on yet, but I will here shortly. But it's done. It's done. So now it's just working on wiring and fuel system and trinkets here and there to get it to run, and it's awesome. So I want to thank everybody that's been watching these videos. I've seen a lot of the Dakota LS swap series get a lot of views, a lot more than I was expecting. It's no leaps and hurdles compared to some people, but I just want to really send out a thank you for anybody that's watched these videos, that's interested, that's going to take this project on themselves. Let me know if you do. Send me a picture of your truck. I think that'd be really, really neat. And thank all my friends that have been helping out. Again, Tommy Kogan, who's just helped me out with the motor mounts and is going to continue to help me out with the project. He's a really, really good fabricator and learning all that stuff. And plus, he's one of my very best friends. So I want to thank him, and I want to thank Chris Provo, who gave me the oil pan. He happened to have one laying around in his garage, and he saved the day. And then my buddy Michael Kaiser and Billy, who let me have a oil pickup tube that fit the pan. So like without these guys, I'd be kind of stuck right now, still looking and buying parts and stuff like that. So just thank you everybody that's taking their time out to watch this. Please subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. Let us know if you like what we're doing. Leave us a little comment on our page. I appreciate those who have done so far. And we actually are above 100 subscribers, which is not a whole lot, but it's pretty awesome that people have subscribed to this channel. So with that said, I'm looking into trying to make some t-shirts, and so I'm going to continue investigating that and what it takes to do that, and I'm going to let y'all know when that's up. So I'm going to have a website. It's going to be racerxgarage.com. So that's not quite out yet, but I'll make that announcement when it is, and that's where you'll be able to buy like any kind of merch that we're able to sell, and hopefully that we can sell a bit of merch so we can put that into the projects and make some more content for everybody. So thank you again for checking this out, and we got a lot more work to do, but I think we can get it done before September and hopefully be on the road for drag week, as long as COVID kind of gets out of our way. So everybody be safe out there, follow your city's guidelines and whatnot. But until next time, y'all be good.